This is Chuck at Lazarus Recovery Podcast at the junction of faith and recovery. Today's episode is what you wanted to hear. I just had a realization. I needed to find what people want to hear and what people don't want to hear. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what people want to hear and probably talk about the fact that it's not necessarily good if they always hear what they want to hear. Let's talk about what I want to hear. Generally speaking, I know what to say on this podcast so people will listen over and over again. I know exactly. For faith people, you just want me to go right down the line. Tell the Bible thing right down the line. Stay politically correct. Popular. A lot of times depends. If they're conservatives, they want it Bible. If it's very liberal, they want loving God at all times. So you're walking a delicate balance there. Pastors, I feel for pastors because it's not what he's supposed to say, it's what they want to hear. If he doesn't say what they want to hear, then they're just going to go someplace else. A lot of times, they might be terrible preachers or they're bad organizers, but mostly is the guy in the pulpit saying what they want to hear. I mean, there's Bible about that, but we want Bible that feels good. I heard stuff that I really liked. Unfortunately, it's stuff that I know it's not Bible, it's not anything. But if you go to a certain church, basically it's, we don't want you to feel bad. We want you to feel welcomed and included. We don't want to have you feel, we don't want to hurt your feelings. We don't want to challenge you in any particular way. It's not fair if we challenge your choices, especially if there's a large group of people that are choosing something to become popular. That's okay. It's just nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that at all. They don't want to hear Bible. And I understand that. I don't want to hear Bible sometimes. I want everybody to feel welcomed and included. I want to have a gospel where God is an all-loving, all-wonderful, all-accepting God who understands our issues and wants us to give us everything in the kingdom and really not want to challenge us about anything that we do. The only bad things are hurting people's feelings. I get it completely. I can identify with it completely. I know exactly what that's about because I don't want to have anybody mad at me. I want everybody to listen to the podcast and be successful with it and stuff like that. But there are certain things you just don't want to hear from me. I'm no fool. I know exactly what those are. You don't want to hear about certain popular prohibitions these days, which were very biblical, but they don't sell right now. Everybody likes grace, but nobody they like certain parts of the gospel and they don't like other parts of the gospel. I get that. I get that completely. I don't like certain parts. I'm not comfortable with certain parts, but that doesn't mean that I don't have to listen and I don't have to deal with it. Here, we want to hear that everybody's acceptable, that the greatest sin is hurting your feelings. And I completely get that. People have been bruised and beaten and mauled. People in the church have failed monstrously. And you just want to wrap people up and say, hey, you're just not going to get hurt anymore in the church. They want to hear it. It's not right to have somebody make you feel bad in the church. What's not right is to be abused in the church. But this is something different. This is the idea that it is not right to challenge people in the church. It's not right to, through honest doctrine, to challenge people in their behavior. That's considered not right. And they want to hear that it's not right. They want to hear that this is a safe place not to be challenged. You can come here as you are, whatever you want, and not be challenged about any behavior, which by every standard has Bible that's against it, that's opposed to it. You just don't want a church that challenges that. You want a church that at least gives you a fig leaf to cover it. And, you're welcome here no matter what. And I believe that. I think people have a right to come and sit and listen and not get... They've got to understand that they're coming to church and they're going to listen. You say, well, you're not going to come if you're listening to the wrong thing. Well, what's the point of coming to church if they don't tell you what the Bible says? What's the point? You're just looking for somebody to tell you what you want to hear. You're just looking for somebody to tell you about a God that fits your size of things. So you're not interested in what God has to say. You're interested in what you can maneuver God to say for you. And that's something you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear that God has standards. I get that completely. You want to have some place where you feel safe and you're not challenged. You want to go to a place where it's safe. You feel safe, you're not going to get abused or hacked up or anything like that. But that is not the same as not being challenged about the way you're living your life. And I get that you don't want to hear that at all. You want to walk into a church and say everything is okay. You're okay just the way you are. And the church just want to make you feel good about where you're at right now. Fulfill your spiritual needs without challenging your spiritual condition. Everybody's okay. This is not about you're doing bad. This is about improving your life. This is about making you the best you can be. That's what you want to hear. You want some place that can make you the best you can be. But if you notice something, what's missing is the best you so you can be what he wants. That's we don't want to hear that. I can't say that and have people like me. It's not about what we want to do. It's about what he wants us to do. And there's a great deal of argument. I get that completely. But like I said, this is about what I really can't say. I really can't say that there's a right and a wrong. I can't really say that. I can't really say that there's lifestyles that just are not going to fly in a biblical. You're welcome. We're not going to throw you out. We're not going to hurt you. We're not going to do anything like that. But we're not going to salute the flag you want us to salute. That's what you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear disapproval. And I get that completely. I get that. You made your choices, and you want the church to support your choices. Because obviously your choices are the thing that's important. I get that. I completely understand. But unfortunately, it's not the way I understand the thing, what works. So you don't want to hear from me certain things you can't do. And you want to hear from me certain things you can do. The pastor's not prepared to endorse. You want that. You want to be told you can do what you want to do, and you don't want to be told you can't do what you don't want to do. So basically, you're insisting on we tell you what you already want to hear. The Bible said that already. be people with itching ears wanting to hear what they want to hear. So basically, you want to hear about change you want, and you don't want to hear about change that you don't want. You want victory by your definition of victory. You don't want victory. So I can't come to you and say, victory means obedience. That's not something anybody wants to hear. So that's I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and I want the church that I go to support me and agree with me. I want the church to be supportive. I want God to be supportive of whatever I want to do. Whatever, no matter whatever, I want the church to be supportive. And I've told my friend, I said, hey, it's not a problem. You can find a church that fits anything you want to do. They're more than eager to pat you on the head and say, that's great, that's awesome. I think that's, if you want to do it, and it works for you, then great. I'm good with it. I'm good with it. I'm good with the fact that you want to do it that way. I'm here, and the church is here to support you, make you feel good about yourself, and not challenge you on anything. Except maybe challenge you on self-harm. We don't want to hurt you to hurt yourself, but we don't want to challenge you either. That's what we can't. That's what we can't say. We can't say you can't challenge God's way. I understand it. No, what human being wants to go God's way completely? Nobody does. So, that's what you don't want to hear. I can't tell you how to live your life. It's like a friend of mine who got saved in a Billy Graham's crusade, and he was interested in the Bible, so we did a Bible study, and it didn't go one meeting before he found out that his lifestyle was not encouraged in the Bible study. And he walked away and never came back because he was going to do what he was going to do. And any religion that he went to, the first requirement was it talked the way he wanted it to talk. It encouraged me in the ways he wanted to do it. Irrespective of what it did to other people, it was about him. He came to Jesus for him. And if Jesus couldn't, and the church couldn't help with that thing, then he wasn't staying. And I have to tell you, whoever's listening, I have to tell you, if you want to even understand faith people, you got to understand their willingness at some points to have themselves be told they can't do something they want to do. It's part of the drill, and if they haven't seen that yet, then wait, because they will, or don't hold your breath if they come back, because how their life, then they're in the wrong place, in the wrong business. Because a faith walk with Jesus is a lot about coming to grips with the fact the way he wants it, not the way you want it. Do you agree? Probably not. Do you want to do stuff that they don't want you to do? Probably not. Probably you're going to run into a problem. Are you going to run into stuff that you just really don't like? Yeah, probably. That's why they talk about the cross. Nobody goes to the cross like with enthusiasm. They go to the cross because they have to go. This is what you don't want to hear. And if you're a believer and you've managed to tiptoe through the raindrops and found a place where nobody challenges you about stuff, then I suggest you look at your hold cards, because they are not going to do you good. Because doing what you don't want to do and being around people that don't do what you do is part of being a Christian. There's a motif of take up your cross and follow me. Well, the cross is no like lollipop. Sometimes it's just like you don't want to do it. Other times it's just appalling how bad it is. That's the problem. If you're going to be a Christian, you got to be willing to listen to stuff you don't want to like. You're not going to like. You don't have to say, "Oh, I love it," but you have to say, "Okay. If that, I'll argue, I'll complain, but in the end, you got to say, well, yeah, it's there in the Word, and as much as I struggle against it, it's there in the Word, and I have to deal with that. I have to deal with it. So, as a consequence, if you can't tolerate being told something you don't want to deal with, then you're definitely not, your Christianity is a little on the sparse side. Because we have to listen to and figure out exactly what God wants us to do. Because you're going to hear stuff you don't want to hear. In everything. He's going to challenge the world order. Well, everybody says it doesn't matter what everybody says. If you poll a bunch of lemmings before they jump off a cliff, they're all in agreement until they jump off the cliff. Agreement is not everything, especially if in the long run it destroys people. So if you can't listen to what you don't want to hear, you better check your hole cards, because you got to be a check and make sure there's not a lot of feathers around you, lemmings being around you. If you're running with the lemmings, the chances are very high that you're going to run off a cliff. I guess what I'm saying, this is fairly short, but what I'm saying is check your hole card. If you're hearing something you want to hear all the time, chances are you're not in a good place and you need to reorder that. That's all I'm saying in this one. If you're in the right place, you're not going to hear everything you like all the time. You're going to have to deal with it, because a lot of Christian faith is tough stuff, and that's just the way it is. You can get a sympathy chit from the chaplain, but that's the way it is. It's not all of it, but there is a good dose of it. Take up your cross and follow me is not good news. It never was good news, but it was an order from the guy that runs the show. Take up your cross and follow me. You can preach it away. You can do a bunch of stuff. But in the end, that is the gospel. That is what it is. So say it, but if you're in the right place, you're going to hear stuff you don't want to hear. And if it's really good, you're going to work very hard at finding another place that says what you want to hear. But there's a difference between what you want to hear and what you need to hear. And the Bible defines what you need to hear. And people just sort of describe what they want to hear. Anyway, this is Chuck at Lazarus Recovery Podcast, a junction of faith and recovery. And this is a quickie, but it occurred to me that that's one of my beefs. Well, if I could just put together a podcast only with stuff you want to hear. Just, hey, come, take a quick look at the stuff going on, and does it taste good and everything, so this is what you need to remember. Everything that tastes good is not necessarily good for you. So this is Chuck at Lazarus Recovery Podcast, Junction of Faith and Recovery, and I'll try to talk about what good stuff is like. But the problem with it is good stuff doesn't necessarily taste good, and that's generally the problem. So anyway, Chuck at Lazarus Recovery Podcast, Junction of Faith and Recovery. Thank you much.